Just leave the money and get out. We're getting a divorce. I never want to see your face again. You cheater." Mariah screamed hysterically, leaving no trace of the woman I once loved. The kind and talented cook, Mariah, is now a stranger to me. But it's been about a year since she barely spoke to me, let alone cooked anything. We're not getting divorced, at least not right now. Mariah might think I'm oblivious, but I know exactly what's going on. I won't just let her divorce me and take my money. My name is Tosh. I'm 54. I'm the CEO of a world-famous confectionery company. I am just an ordinary guy with nothing remarkable about me, except that my grandfather founded this confectionery company. So, it's no exaggeration to say that it was decided from the moment I was born as the eldest son of this family that I would take over the company. My grandparents and parents didn't insist on keeping the business within the family. Instead, they always told me to do what I want to. Growing up surrounded by sweets, I naturally developed a keen interest in them. Unfortunately, I lack both the talent for making sweets and any skill in cooking. I really wanted to work in the factory and create various sweets with my own hands, but that dream never came true. After graduating from college, I was first assigned to the planning and marketing department. At that time, I didn't tell anyone I was the heir to the company. I took the exams just like everyone else and earned my position through my own merits. I'm not great at making sweets by myself, but I've been able to come up with various ideas for them. Seeing the happy faces of people who try our products has always motivated me. However, even though I haven't confessed it to anyone, I am the heir. I couldn't stay in the same department for a long time like other employees. I was moved around to departments like sales and accounting every few years. Such transfers within the company are not uncommon, so there were no strange rumors about me being passed around because I was incompetent. "Hey, what's up with this room? Could you clean up a little?" Around 5 years have passed in our marriage. The honeymoon phase is nowhere to be found. Mariah quit her job to support me and became a full-time homemaker, but that only lasted for the first 3 years. Nowadays, she spends her days lounging at home, watching her favorite TV shows and snacking. Whenever she goes out, she frequently stays out late into the night. I come home tired from work, clean the room, and cook. After having dinner and taking a bath, she quickly retreats to her own room. Our house, originally designed with future children in mind, has a layout of 4 bedrooms along with a living room, a dining room, and a kitchen. However, we haven't been blessed with children, and gradually, the rooms meant for kids became separate spaces for Mariah and me. Mariah went back to her room, leaving me alone in the spacious living room. I found myself sipping on a beer, deep thoughts as I reminisced about the past. As I approached my late 30s, it seemed like everyone around me, from colleagues to my close friends, was announcing their marriage one after another. Some of them tied the knot right after college graduation and now have kids in elementary school. As I found myself wrapping wedding gifts almost every month, I started feeling a bit empty and wondered if I should start thinking about marriage too. While I've been focused on my work in my entire life, it doesn't mean I lack experience with women. I've had my fair share of relationships, but it turned out that all of them were not after me, but rather the wealth hidden behind me. As time passed, I couldn't find a woman I wanted to marry because of that. However, at the age of 38, fate brought me an encounter that would change my life. That's when I met Mariah, the woman who would later become my wife. That day, I had made a mistake at work that caused us to lose a contract, and I was feeling terribly down. My seniors and colleagues told me not to worry about it and offered words of encouragement, but my spirits remained low. Sighing deeply, I found myself on my way home when a small bar caught my eye. Was there a bar here? I might as well stop by for a drink to clear my head. I found out that the bar had just opened a few days ago. The main feature of the store was a counter with 2 tables in a slightly open area, making it a cozy hideaway spot. While enjoying the bartender's recommendation, I listened to the pleasant melodies playing in the background and savored the atmosphere of the bar. Then, a woman had a seat next to me, leaving 1 seat between us. She appeared to be familiar with the bartender, engaging in what seemed like a lively conversation. That day, I settled my bill without any event and headed home. However, I found myself drawn to the bar, visiting a few times a week. Gradually, I saw the woman more often, We became friendly naturally. She told me that her name was Mariah, a 33-year-old working hard in sales at a trading company. I had just been assigned to the sales department at the time, so we became good drinking buddies, sharing complaints and toasting to our successes. If you don't mind, would you like to exchange contact information? Oh, sorry, you probably have a partner, right? Mariah asked me, her cheeks slightly flushed from the alcohol. At that moment, I hadn't told Mariah that I was the heir to the company. Yet, I distinctly remember feeling pleased that her interest in me, even without knowing that. No, I don't have a partner. Let's exchange contact information. Saying that, we exchanged numbers. After several dates, I made the confession of my feelings. Mariah happily agreed, and we started dating. However, I couldn't bring myself to talk about my company right away. We were both of a certain age and, though unspoken, I believe we were both thinking about marriage. I hesitated to keep secrets, fearing that revealing my background might make Mariah see me as just money, like the women in my past. Realizing that I couldn't keep it hidden forever, about 6 months into our relationship, I finally brought up the subject. What's the occasion for such a formal talk? You know the company I work for, right? Actually, it's been managed by my family since my grandfather's time. I'm the heir. I'm sorry for keeping it hidden. I bowed my head, feeling cold sweat run down as Mariah remained silent. Then, to my surprise, I heard what sounded like sobbing. What? Really? You've been so busy and going on so many trips. I thought maybe you were cheating and going to break up with me. At that time, we were living together, and it wasn't unusual for me to come home after midnight due to overtime. I also had to accompany my father on business trips, knowing it made Mariah feel lonely. That's why I thought I couldn't keep hiding it anymore. I regretted not talking about it sooner, realizing she was worried I was cheating. I'm sorry. I'm not cheating, and the only one I love is Mariah. I hugged Mariah tightly to reassure her, as she was crying in my arms. Even after knowing I was the heir, Mariah's attitude towards me didn't change at all. If anything, Mariah seems to be focusing more on saving than ever before. Even as a future CEO, and I mean no offense, you could lose everything in an instant, right? I'll support you no matter what, but money is important, isn't it? Mariah's point isn't wrong. Regular employees can find a new job and secure another source of income if their company goes under and they lose their job, along with receiving severance. On the other hand, if an owner loses their company, the financial loss can be substantial, and they could end up with a massive debt. No matter how smoothly things are running, no one can predict when everything might flip upside down. I've heard that the wealthier people are, the more they value money, and I'm starting to see that might be true. The women I've dated before always demanded brand-name bags or wanted to go on expensive vacations, making unreasonable requests. Honestly, for now, I'm just a regular employee with a salary similar to my coworkers, so I can't afford luxuries. Whenever I mentioned this, I'd get asked, when are you going to become the CEO? Almost daily. I found myself repeatedly realizing that I was only valued for my money and having to end relationships because of it. Without ever suspecting Mariah had any ulterior motives, I proposed after 2 years of dating. She cried tears of joy, ruining her makeup, and we happily got engaged. I chose the engagement ring based on one Mariah had admired in a magazine, saying it was beautiful. After informing our parents about our marriage, a few months after my proposal, we successfully completed our family meeting. We decided the wedding would be after the company's founding anniversary next year. Our company, being a major one, has factories and branches nationwide, and we rent a venue every year for the founding anniversary party. It's thanks to the employees that the company has continued to exist, so we must give back on such a day. My grandfather used to say, a sentiment that has been passed down to this day. It was decided that on the day of the party, I would announce that I am the successor and also announce our engagement. Time flew by with all the wedding preparations, and before we knew it, the day of the founding party arrived. I wore a sharp, slightly more expensive suit than my usual attire. Mariah was beautifully made up, wearing a stunning dress, and needless to say, I was mesmerized by her. How do I look? Clothes make the man, right? Yes. You look absolutely beautiful. So much that I'm worried someone might steal you away. While we had such exchanges in private, my father, the CEO, was progressing the party with a microphone in hand. Now, I think it's time to announce who will be the successor. I am a child my father had at the age of 26, so he is now 65 years old. Although he is still full of energy and capable of continuing in his role, his age is undeniable. There had been whispers among the employees, expecting that this year there might finally be an announcement about the successor. In the midst of the bustling venue, I was beckoned from the back. Tosh. He is my son and the person who will be the next president of this company. Probably only the new employees didn't know me, as I had been making rounds in various departments and showing my face. Since I hadn't told even my close colleagues or friends about this, surprise voices arose from all around. And one more thing, my father continued. Then Mariah stepped forward. Taking this opportunity, I would like to announce the engagement of my son, Tosh. This lady here is Mariah, his fiancée. With that, cheers and a round of applause erupted. Not just a successor announcement, but an engagement news too made this year's party exceptionally lively. Hey, Tosh. To think you kept this from us too. Well, congratulations anyway. Sorry. I just didn't want to be favored or have people walk on eggshells around me. I had told my colleague Nicholas about dating Mariah and even about our engagement. However, I hadn't mentioned anything about being the successor, so he was quite surprised. The founding anniversary, which turned out almost like an engagement party, came to a successful close, and I began my formal education about the internal affairs of the company as the president's secretary. Having grown up watching my father work as the president, I thought I understood how challenging the role could be. But that was just what I thought, and I was soon to learn that I didn't understand it at all. I arrived at work earlier than anyone else in the morning and left later than anyone at night. During the day, there was no time to rest with paperwork and meetings with important clients. I was exhausted every day, but my loving wife Mariah would always welcome me home. Mariah, a great cook, always prepared my favorite dishes, and no matter how late I got home, she would stay up waiting for me. Thank you for everything, but you don't have to stay up for me if it gets too late, okay? I appreciate her waiting for me, but I don't want to put her through any trouble, so I've said as much. I'm a homemaker, supporting you is my job, you know. Plus, I wait because I want to, so don't worry about it, she says with a smile. I deeply feel that she's an amazing woman, far too good for me. However, that happy life didn't last long. 5 years into our marriage, my father was still energetic enough to work, and I continued as a secretary. The only change was that I gradually started to take on more of the president's responsibilities, like attending meetings in his place and handling paperwork. Then, changes began to show in Mariah too. The lights are off. It was past 10 p.m. when I got home. Usually, the lights would be on, and Mariah would greet me with a welcome home, but there was no sign of her. Quietly entering the house and checking the bedroom, I found Mariah sleeping soundly. I felt a bit disappointed, but thought such days happen and didn't dwell on it, simply reheating the meal prepared on the table and eating. From that day on, Mariah was often asleep by the time I got home. Not only that, but she also wouldn't wake up in the morning, and we only really talked on weekends. Initially, meals were prepared, but gradually even that stopped, and the room became increasingly messy. Lately, there's been no meal prepared. What's going on? Are you feeling unwell? Worried she might be sick? I asked. However, the answer I received caught me completely off guard. I've started taking yoga classes. You know, I'm not getting any younger. Thought I should pay attention to my health. Plus, I'm always lonely by myself. Even though we could spend time together on weekends, it was hard to even have meals together on weekdays. She told me she started attending a new yoga school in the neighborhood after seeing a flyer and wanting to talk to someone. Got it. It's great you found a hobby, but I'd appreciate it if you could at least prepare some meals in advance, you know. I was genuinely happy that Mariah, who had always been cooped up at home, had found an interest outside. I'm the one who's making her feel lonely, but I feel like I'm being looked down upon for that reason, which makes me feel a little complicated. Mariah simply said, understood, and started preparing meals, though not every day. Mariah, completely taken with yoga, began spending our precious weekends at yoga classes or out for tea with friends she met there, gradually leading to us drifting apart. As I focused on my work and Mariah on her hobby, our marriage felt more like we were living separately under the same roof. When I turned into 50, I was appointed the third-generation president. You finally became president. We have to celebrate. On a weekend when Mariah was about to head to yoga as usual, I stopped her to share the news. Usually, she would come home late after yoga, heading out for tea or drinks with friends. But that day, she returned in the afternoon, laden with large shopping bags. She prepared a lot of my favorite dishes, and the table was filled with food as if it was a home party. Happy about it, but isn't this a bit too much? Even as I said that, I eagerly enjoyed Mariah's warm homemade meals, and they quickly disappeared into my stomach. I hoped this gesture would bring us back to closeness we once shared, but the next day, life resumed its usual routine. Worse, Mariah said she didn't want to be woken up by my late returns, so we even started sleeping in separate rooms. Our conversations became non-existent, and it became normal not to see each other at all, despite living in the same house. What's this bill? One weekend, checking the mail, I found some flyers and the credit card statement. Usually, Mariah checked these, and I hardly ever looked at them, but I was shocked by the amount billed. I had given Mariah a family card to cover living expenses, but the charges clearly exceeded what would be normal for our daily life. I sent Mariah a message saying we needed to talk and urged her to come home early. What's this all about? Even though I asked her to come home early, Mariah didn't return until after 10 p.m. Deciding not to press on her late return, I immediately got to the point. Once in a while, it's okay, isn't it? After all, I am the wife of a president. Everyone knows that, and I can't be seen in shabby clothes, can I? Mariah explained that's why she bought cosmetics and clothes in bulk. Look, I'm not saying you shouldn't dress well, but please be mindful of how you spend. In response, she was just saying, yes, noted, and disappeared into the bathroom. Indeed, upon reflection, the bathroom counter was lined with skincare products I'd never seen before, and Mariah did seem unusually stylish when she went out on weekends. Perhaps due to the exhaustion from work, I hadn't paid much attention, but once I noticed, I couldn't help but notice Mariah's behavior. It's hard to say this, but shouldn't we be a bit suspicious? I wrapped up my work early and invited Nicholas out for drinks. Of course, it was to discuss about Mariah. Even though there's a hierarchical relationship of boss and employee at work, he treats me the same as he always did in private. Right, maybe I should look into it. Neither of us said it aloud, but the word affair was on our minds. 2 months after hiring a detective agency, the evidence was easy to find. It seemed there was no intention to conceal it, or perhaps she thought I wouldn't notice, as her guard seemed to be relaxed. When I was shown the evidence photos, despite being prepared, I felt a surge of nausea as something welled up from deep within. After regaining my composure, I decided it would be smoother to handle what comes next with a lawyer's help, so I asked the detective agency to refer me to one. Feeling as if I was carrying a heavy weight, I returned home. Unusually for a weekend, Mariah was present. Seeing her again made me feel sick, and I rushed to the bathroom. Hey, I have something to talk about. Come here right now. Mariah called out, seemingly unconcerned about my state, insisting she had something to discuss. I took a deep breath to calm myself down and went to Mariah as she asked, "What's the meaning of this?" She demanded, scattering photos across the table, showing a man and a woman. On closer inspection, the man was me. What do you mean? She's just my secretary. Yes, the woman in those photos is indeed my secretary. There's absolutely nothing inappropriate between us, and she's also married. Lies. You're cheating, aren't you? Always busy, but really just hanging out with this woman. I'll sue you. I was tempted to point out that you're the one cheating, but I had just received advice from a lawyer advising against stirring up trouble, so I bit my tongue and held back those words. I'm not cheating. She's really just my secretary. If it bothers you that much, I can introduce you to her. I tried to keep my tone calm to avoid further provocation, but Mariah wasn't listening. How could I ever believe that? If you don't want to be sued, just leave the money and get out. We're getting a divorce. I can't stand to see your face anymore. You cheater. Mariah screamed hysterically, leaving no trace of the woman I once loved. Her face covered with her hands as if she was crying. Occasionally sniffling could be heard, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it might all be an act, and behind her hands, there might be a hidden smile. We're not getting divorced, not just yet. Mariah might believe she hasn't been caught, but I know everything. I won't let her divorce me just to take my money. Why not? You don't care if you get sued. A president getting sued for an affair could lose the company over reputation issues, you know. I need to prepare too. Not now is all I'm saying. Okay. Mariah was still muttering some complaints, but realizing I wasn't ruling out divorce completely, she sighed heavily and disappeared into the night. A few days later, I spoke with a lawyer introduced by the detective agency during a break at work. I handed over all the evidence, photos, and documents of Mariah's affair. I also showed them the photos Mariah left, alleging I had an affair with my secretary, and explained the situation. To put it simply, with the evidence gathered by the detective agency, I could definitely win. And the photos Mariah asserted as evidence of my affair with my secretary depicted nothing more than us having meals or taking breaks while out, none of which constituted proof of any wrongdoing. They were likely taken by Mariah or her affair partner. The lawyer quickly prepared necessary documents like a certified letter and sent 2 sets to a certain apartment. That place was where the man Mariah was having an affair with lived, but investigations revealed that Mariah spent most of her time there when she was not at home. So I had Mariah's documents set sent there too. I had finished what needed to be done and decided to focus on work, leaving the rest to my lawyer. As I went through documents as usual, I received a call from Mariah. It had been a while since I received a phone call from her, let alone received a call from Mariah. With that thought in mind, I pressed the answer button. What the heck is this? What's this certified letter about? I don't understand. There's nothing you shouldn't understand, right? I'd think it's all about things you're well aware of. I could hear whispers and arguments in the background, suggesting that the man she was having an affair with might have been present. She probably thinks I can hear. You're with him right now, aren't you? Don't contact me anymore. You don't need to come home. I'll pack up your things and send them over. Let's communicate through lawyers from now on. I said coldly and ended the call without waiting for Mariah's response. Afterward, Mariah called several times, but I had been advised by my lawyer to avoid direct contact, so I blocked her calls. As expected, when I got home, Mariah was there. Isn't it awful to ignore my calls like that? Let's talk this out, okay? I ignored Mariah's words and methodically packed her belongings into a large suitcase. What? That's my stuff, isn't it? What are you doing? You were cheating too. If anyone should leave, it's you. I haven't cheated. Didn't I tell you? Those photos were probably taken by you or your affair partner, right? When I said that with a cold, indifferent gaze, Mariah bit her lip, as if I had struck a nerve. It's your fault, you know. You made me feel lonely. That's why I cheated. I did nothing wrong. I won't pay any alimony. She argues it's all my fault, trying to justify her innocence, but I ignore her and continue packing, then hand her the luggage. Saving me the shipping trouble, thanks. If you stay any longer, I'll call the police, okay? Mentioning the police made her realize she was in a bad position, so she snatched her luggage from me and hastily left the house. Even though I've already asked my lawyer for help, and I thought the divorce proceedings would go smoothly, it wasn't that simple. Mariah was insistent on talking to me directly, throwing tantrums until a meeting was set up under the supervision of our lawyers. I can't possibly pay alimony. I'm a housewife, you know. Besides, he's the one at fault here, so if anything, I should be the one receiving alimony. Despite admitting fault as the offending spouse, she refused to entertain any discussion about alimony. Regardless of the reasons, you were the one who had an affair, right? The law stipulates that the guilty party, which is you, must pay alimony. Unless Dosh says he doesn't want it, that is. At those words, Mariah's eyes sparkled with hope as she looked at me. I don't know what you're expecting, but I will be claiming alimony. That's insane. We get married because we loved each other. I was the one who supported you all this way, wasn't I? And yet, how could you do something so cruel? Whether it was an act or serious, Mariah sobbed like a child, wailing loudly. I do appreciate you, and I feel bad for making you feel lonely. But that doesn't justify cheating, does it? Though we've been living like we were separated within our own home for the past few years, it's not like there wasn't a past where she supported me. Both feeling grateful and thinking she was wrong were indeed my true feelings. Fine. Then we won't get divorced. I'll cut ties with that man, and from now on, I'll only have eyes for you. Isn't that good enough? Unfortunately, regardless of whether you and Tosh divorce or not, it's still possible for Tosh to file for alimony. Tosh has no intention of changing his mind about the alimony request. Mariah glared sharply at the lawyer as he conveyed this. We have discussed beforehand about the possibility of Mariah saying that she wouldn't want a divorce. However, I had no intention of dropping the alimony request, nor did I want to continue the marital relationship. Well then, if I'm going to be sued either way, I might as well get her divorce. After all, I'll come out ahead with the division of assets. Especially since you, being a CEO, are making $100,000 a month, Mariah said with a coarse laugh, at which point any feelings of love I might have had disappeared, and I can't help to disappoint in myself for not seeing her true colors sooner. Division of assets. What are you talking about? You won't be getting that kind of money. Have you forgotten this document? Mariah's face, once full of a smug smile, instantly turned stern, and rightly so. During a marriage, assets are treated as shared property and are divided upon divorce. However, this time it was different. The reason goes back to before we were married. At the time, when my father was still the CEO, we had a close relationship with a client whom we were very familiar with. The heir of that client got married and then took over, but his spouse cheated, leading to a divorce. In the end, it was the other party who ended up benefiting from the division of assets, just as my father had been complaining about recently. I'm not saying I don't trust Mariah, you know. When my father told me that story, considering the company and all, I decided to take extra precautions and had a lawyer draft a document. It stated that in the case of divorce due to an at-fault spouse, there would be no division of assets. Of course, I had explained the situation to Mariah, and she had agreed and signed the document willingly. But you're the reason for all this. Isn't it a bit harsh to not give me anything? This is outrageous. Outrageous, huh? Say whatever you want. My affection for you is gone. Mariah continued to sob uncontrollably. Besides, I am disappointed. This situation had caused a lot of trouble for my lawyer. Stuck in the middle. Phew. Is it finally over? Mariah had been reluctant to get a divorce, but as the at-fault spouse, she didn't have much choice. Told by the lawyer that it would go to court if she didn't agree, she reluctantly signed the divorce papers. To clear my conscience for the slight guilt I felt, I gave her enough money to live on for a few months and cut all ties with Mariah. Some people criticized me for being too soft, but she was a woman I once loved. I couldn't bring myself to truly hate her. Holding the packed boxes in my hands, I looked back at the house I shared with Mariah with mixed feelings. This was the house we built together, thinking of our future children. In reality, we barely spent any time together, let alone have children. I put the house up for sale and moved back to my parents' house. After a while, the doorbell at my parents' house rang. When I checked the monitor, a woman with a defeated look was on the screen. My father and I had looked at each other, wondering who it could be, and headed to the front door. I'm so glad you're here. When I went back to our house, there was someone else living there, and I was so surprised. Hearing her voice, I recognized it was Mariah, but she looked nothing like before. Her once neatly dyed hair was now a messy blonde. Her face was worn out without makeup, looking like she could collapse at any moment. Huh? What? Mariah, why are you here? Considering the neighbor's eyes, I quickly closed the door to continue the conversation inside. It turns out, after our divorce, she had told her affair partner about it. What? No division of assets. If you're not going to having any money, then I don't need you. What? What do you mean? The man was only after Mariah's money, and once that it wasn't possible, he had no use for her and fled. Thanks to my lawyer, the alimony I claimed from the man was paid in one lump sum, so his whereabouts mean nothing to me. However, for Mariah, it's a different story. Despite the blow she suffered, she had thought she could be with her cheating partner, but he only saw her as a source of money, reminding me a bit of myself in the past, which pained my heart a little. Being alone, She rented an apartment with the living expenses I provided, but unable to cut down on her lifestyle. She spent money as before and quickly ran out. So, why are you here? If you're out of money, you should just get a job. I work now. I've been a housewife all this time. Please, can we start over? Look, I won't have to pay alimony, right? I'll be devoted from now on. My father and I were speechless with amazement. In the end, Mariah wanted to start over with me for money. Please leave. It's over between us. Mariah, you said it, didn't you? You never wanted to see my face again. I'm returning those exact words to you. Even as I said this, she stubbornly refused to leave, so my father, unable to bear it any longer, called the police, and soon 2 officers arrived. No, please don't do this. Mariah, shouting those words, was escorted away by the officers and I never saw her again. Being single didn't feel much different. I had been practically alone even before the divorce, with the only change being that I now lived at my parents' house. Life went on as usual, working and sometimes going out for drinks with Nicholas. I'm still actively involved in the business, but someday I'll have to pass the company on. You shouldn't worry. As long as someone cares about the company, the person doesn't have to be family. My father said with a smile. I might not have been great at understanding women, but when it comes to interesting someone with the company, that's a crucial person. In that regard, I'm determined to not make a mistake and to strengthen my ability to truly see people for who they are.